Here for more on this subject, Jonathan Fahey is here. He's a former federal prosecutor and the former acting ICE director under President Trump. Sir, good to have you back with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is amazing that they're still relying on this line that, she wasn't the border czar. She was just in charge of stopping the root causes of the border crisis. What even is that?
It is absolutely, on one hand, this is so comical and so entertaining if it wasn't so serious. But this whole idea that she was just going to, I think, identify the root causes of illegal immigration, I guess maybe address those. But the fun irony of it all is what they say the root causes are things like, corruption, lack of ability to get debit cards, climate change, things like that is what they actually say the root causes are. So the irony of it all is, well, then we know these are not legitimate asylum seekers coming to our country, so they should never be let in to begin with, which is the thing that they never reconcile with at all, because they don't say the root cause is torture or persecution in other countries, which is the only reason you can get asylum. So she has identified them, but that should be even more of a reason for them not doing what they're doing. But the whole thing is it's so nonsensical, and that's not what she supposedly was doing anyway. And J.D. Vance is right. We've all said it before. The root cause of what's happened the last 4 years is the change of administration and the Democratic parties, which are full-on open borders. Nothing else matters. That's their highest priority with respect to immigration, and they're willing to have people die. They're willing to put us at our national security at risk. All of that to achieve their objective of open borders and massive numbers of illegal immigrants in the country.
And they scrapped a number of Trump-era provisions and rules that were designed to stop all of this, including things like Remain in Mexico. They refused to assemble border wall that was already called for by the federal government. And they've given billions of dollars to these NGOs that are human trafficking foreign nationals into our country. I don't know how you could look at this and say anything but Kamala Harris is to blame.
Yeah, there is no way. And if you look about what did they say in 2020, they all basically said, all the candidates, meaning the Democratic candidates, that it should not be a crime to come here illegally. They demonize ICE officers. Secretary Mayorkas laid out his, at the very beginning, their policy that they would not deport people unless they were an aggravated felon plus other factors or a national security risk. So they already, right off the bat, took almost every illegal alien off the table for deportation. And they've also supported so many benefits for illegal aliens. I've never heard a question asked, which I'm just so surprised by, but when they get a Democrat on one of these shows, they need to ask them, is there any benefit that American citizens now receive that illegal aliens should not receive? And they can't answer the question. They would have to hem and haw because they want them to get in-state tuition, welfare, everything else we get. Plus, they get free phones, and in New York, you're getting gift cards and free rent. It's astonishing. They never put the American citizens even on par with the illegal aliens. It's truly remarkable. They're almost like one of the more powerful constituencies in Washington.
Well, they also refuse to identify the problem. They don't say illegal immigrants. They don't say illegal aliens, which is the legal phrasing for this. They say undocumented migrants, which is designed to throw you off the scent.
Yeah, non-citizens, newcomers. Yeah, it's designed to not only throw you off the scent, but also to basically say, we don't think it should really be illegal, so come on in. The message is always very clear that, it may be illegal, but we don't think so. So it's an open door and you will never get kicked out. But yeah, all the euphemisms. I mean, we've talked about this before. It's like the side that talks all in euphemisms and platitudes, that's generally the side you shouldn't be believing in anything that you do in life.
Yeah,
and that's all they do.
Because the truth isn't compelling enough. They need to lie to you. So Kamala Harris has an advertisement out this past month in which a couple of people have identified, including Peter Hassan over at the Free Beacon. He put in the footwork on this. I love this. That the ad talks about how she's getting tough on the border, but it features a bunch of border wall that was assembled while Trump was president. Peter Hassan has looked closely and said, wait a second. I know exactly where that section of the border is. That's Trump wall. Take a listen to the ad that Kamala Harris put out.
Kamala Harris has spent decades fighting violent crime. As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border. As vice president, she backed the toughest border control bill in decades. And as president, she will hire thousands more border agents and crack down on fentanyl and human trafficking. Fixing the border is tough. So is Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
So now she's tough on the border, Jonathan Fahey, and I love that they refer to California. It is a border state, but she's a border state prosecutor because she was in California. And they also say that she supported the toughest bill on the border it's ever been presented. What do you make of that?
Well, we know that's one, it's not true. They're talking about that Senate bill that, the White House supposedly supported that really wasn't particularly tough at all. It just gave them cover on this issue. So they wanted to be able to say, look, we did something about the issue to take it off the table for 2024. But as you know, you've covered, lots of times, this bill allowed, I think it was up to 5,000 crossings per day before they even do anything about it. So that's 1.8 million get to come through our ports of entry without question. And this doesn't even include all what we know are the known gotaways that come through non-ports of entry. So that would continue. And then they have easier, it's easier to get asylum. The other thing that was a great thing about this bill, when you look at this, they gave money to sanctuary cities. The cities that encouraged illegal aliens, they were going to give them money. But again, the whole thing with this bill, it totally gives up the game because, when you go back to this asylum nonsense that they talk about, if these people were really fleeing persecution and torture, would it be humane to send back the 5,001 person to be tortured and persecuted? Yeah. Of course not. But we know, it's just such nonsense. We know none of these, or virtually none of these people are asylum seekers. So it's 5,000 people a day, and it's all discretionary, and we know they don't enforce the current law, so why on earth would they enforce this law? And if somehow she gets elected, which, she may very well, if she could continue to hide and, have the media run her campaign for her, that they're not going to enforce any laws because this will be essentially, they've green-lighted, they will look like this open borders policy has been green-lighted by the voters. So we are full-on, basically no border whatsoever if she's elected president. And, that's what's going to happen. And the border bill is nonsense. They wouldn't consider H.R. 2, the House bill, which was actually strong. But again, the other thing that bothers me so much about this border bill is it's, again, a false premise. The false premise was we have this overly complicated problem with this immigration system that everyone knows is broken, so we need this complex solution, when in fact that's not the case. The problem is we don't enforce the current law, and if we did so, reinstated, remain in Mexico, deported illegal alien criminals. Totally. Wow, we could turn this thing around so quickly. We don't need to spend a gazillion dollars. We could do it, but that's always the other trick in government: make something sound so complicated.
And it's typical left-wing abuse of the American voter, because this is a problem that they created, and then they say they have the answer to it. And actually, if you look at the legislation, if you go back and look at it, which I did today, I was like, what was actually in that thing? $60 billion for Ukraine. $60 billion for Ukraine was in this thing, and just $20 billion for the, quote, border, including $2.3 billion for the human trafficking NGOs to bring more people into the country. The idea that this was somehow a tough border bill is a scam, and anybody who says that, Trump was opposed to it because it was going to get control of the border before he became president, they're lying to you.
Yeah, it's absolutely nonsense. And, the fact that it even got as far as it got is ridiculous. But it was all, again, part of, like you said, part of the Ukraine package. But, they don't need some major bill. It's like, let's enforce the law and send people away that don't belong here, and it will take care of itself. But they won't do this. It's like, but that's a Washington move, right? Hey, as long as we pass a bill that solves a problem, as opposed to solving the problem, and which they have no intention of doing. And they still support sanctuary cities, for crying out loud. Cities that keep criminals within the community and shield them from being deported. It's truly one of the most astonishing policies I've ever heard of.
And we have that now in our own area. So Fairfax County, Virginia, the source of yet another one of these stories today. ABC 7's Nick Minnock, who's so good at all of this, reporting today that Immigration and Customs Enforcement has arrested a Bolivian man who has been convicted of child sex crimes And ICE is saying that Fairfax has been refusing detainers. Here's how they report the story today. ICE arrested a Bolivian national convicted of sex crimes against a Virginia child, and the Fairfax County Sheriff refused to honor three immigration detainers and release the convicted sex offender back into the community, says ABC7. Enforcement and removal operations in Washington, D.C. said they lodged an immigration detainer on May 3rd after 36-year-old Jose Fabricio Vezaga Vargas, his arrest by the Fairfax County Police Department. ERO adds that in July, a Fairfax County judge sentenced him to 6 months in jail for the sexual assault of a child, and then the court suspended all 6 months of the sentence, and the Fairfax County Sheriff refused to honor an immigration detainer. Oh, so you can sexually assault a child and then be sentenced to a fake jail sentence. Then you get out right away, and the sheriff refuses to hand you over to ICE. What is going on in Fairfax County, Jonathan Fahey?
Yeah, it is. It's hard to believe that this is going on right, where I live and maybe where you live. It's like in this area that why would our local authorities strive to keep a child sex offender within our community? It's truly astonishing. And that's really a mainstream Democratic position that they support. I've never heard this administration, they're in charge of ICE. Why aren't they speaking out? The president should be on TV saying, I should honor these detainers. Why aren't they? Because they basically implicitly support the sanctuary cities movement. They could easily bring attention to this. And it's so bad. It's like, a child sex offense doesn't get you kicked out of the United States. It's truly astonishing. And the other thing that's really bad about it, I don't know the facts of the case, so I don't want to presume too much, but he got all suspended time. My guess is his attorney got in front of a judge and said, look, we don't need to use all the resources of our penal system because he's going to be deported anyway. I'm sure they made that type of argument because I've seen it made in court before.
Really?
And it's just kind of, so it's kind of funny. You sort of work both sides. You get the judge to say, well, he's getting kicked out, and then they don't kick him out. But Fairfax County, you've seen it, they have some policy, the schools will no longer cooperate with ICE. And we all know that is just a way to unfairly malign ICE to suggest that they used to run up in schools and deport the kids. And we all know that's not true, but they're always trying to attack, they'll attack ICE to the cows come home. And you heard, Kamala Harris, she's never apologized for calling those Border Patrol agents, accusing them of racially motivated whipping migrants. They never apologize for that, but they will take every shot at Border Patrol, every shot at ICE. But you cannot even use the correct term, illegal alien. And I'm surprised that you even said Bolivian man, because usually when an illegal alien commits a crime in this country, the media reports it as Houston man or Herndon man or something like that. They never even use the country. It's all this effort to deceive the American public about illegal alien crime. And then you'll also hear these things. There's really no crime, not much crime, but it's like, well, how do you know? You can never find out.
Well, so it's 100% is the crime rate if you illegally immigrate into the United States. And Nick Minnock of ABC7 deserves credit for telling the truth.
Oh, he's crushing it on
has
these
just
issues.
Just been too rare these days among the people who call themselves journalists. And as he points out, this Bolivian national, not only was he busted and convicted for sexually assaulting a child, he was also charged with DWI on August 8th. Once again, Fairfax County refusing to honor an immigration detainer. He was arrested again on August 15th. He was charged with 7 counts of felony possession of child porn and felony possession of obscene material with a minor. Once again, the Fairfax County Sheriff, Stacey Kincaid, refusing to honor the detainer. And lastly, insofar as she can chalk up an excuse, which she's attempting to do, she's saying, well, the former Virginia Attorney General, Mark Herring, the Democrat is no longer the Attorney General anymore, told us that, well, we don't really have to respond to ICE detainers. We can ignore them. What? Does that pass the smell test for you, Jonathan Fahey?
No, not really, because a lot of left-wing jurisdictions have sort of made that argument, well, it should only have to be a judicial warrant or anything else, but there's no law that requires that. And, under the, INA law, that it gives the, secretary the discretion to, promulgate regulations to enforce the law. And one of the regulations they had is this detainer system. So there's no reason they can't comply. It's that they don't want to comply, and that's their excuse to not comply. Was Mark Hearing, was a far left AG, as you know. But if they were asked Attorney General Mayorkas, is what to give an advisory opinion, I'm sure he would say you can enforce these. So this idea that they're trying to hide behind some opinion of a left-wing, political attorney general, it doesn't hold water, and that's never held. But you only see that in certain places because lots of places enforce immigration detainers, and they're not getting sued or enjoined or anything else. So, or they're not losing it, at least to my knowledge, and I'm sure I would have heard about it if they are. So it's just a fake excuse. The truth is they want in Fairfax County and the Democratic Party as a whole, they want to do everything they can to encourage illegal immigration, which even is saying, hey, you could come here and do the worst possible crime and we won't kick you out. And think about this, Vince, if you were to go to Europe or something for a vacation and got convicted of drinking and driving, they'd throw you out and send you back, and you wouldn't complain about it, that it was somehow unfair. This idea that you get to come here illegally and commit crimes and still have sort of, act like you have a right to stay. And President Biden, if you remember, when he ran for president, he said that the only people that should be kicked out that are already, like you said, here illegally are people that are felons and not people that drink and drive. And, tell that to somebody that's been, had a child or a family member killed by a drunk driver, that, they get to stay in this country even when they're already illegal and commit new crimes. It's truly absurd. And I'm sure most of the American people, 80 to 90% of it, are aghast by these sanctuary cities laws. But the far left runs Fairfax County right now and really runs the Democratic Party. And they are, give them credit. They are open borders. They were fighting, they're fighting tooth and nail to keep this. And this idea that Kamala Harris will somehow push back on this when she's president, there's no way to believe that that's remotely credible.
How despicable. Imagine running for office just so you could abuse your own citizens, which is what they're doing. Thank you very much. Jonathan Fahey, former ICE director. Good to talk to you today, sir.